Imagine a vessel that never needs to stop for fuel. For decades, the aircraft carrier has been the ultimate symbol of naval power. It is a floating city, a platform for air power, and a weapon of mass projection. But the real story is not about the steel or the planes. It is about the engine. There is talk of a fourth carrier for the People's Liberation Army Navy, and there is talk of a nuclear engine. This is not just a technical upgrade. It is a statement. Here is the thing. Here is the thing. Here's the thing. Nuclear propulsion is incredibly expensive. It requires a level of industrial precision that most nations simply do not possess. So why would Beijing choose this path? The answer lies in the economics of patience. Consider the cost-benefit calculation of a standard diesel carrier. It is cheaper to build. It is easier to maintain. It fits a short-term budget. But it requires refueling. It limits range. It forces the fleet to return to port or rely on vulnerable supply lines. A nuclear carrier removes those limits. It allows for continuous operation. This sounds like a military decision, but look closer at the balance sheet. Investing in nuclear propulsion for a ship of this size signals a commitment to a timeline that extends far beyond the next election cycle. It signals that the leadership is willing to absorb massive upfront costs for returns that might not be realized for decades. This is a bet on long-term dominance. Think about the industrial base required to build a naval reactor. It is not just about the reactor itself. It is about the entire supply chain, high-precision machining, radiation shielding, fuel fabrication. There are reports of new scientific facilities being developed in places like Huizhou. These are not just for civilian energy. They represent a maturation of the technology required to handle complex nuclear applications. When you build a facility capable of high-precision physics experiments, you are building the muscles that can also power a warship. This is the hidden signal. It suggests that the civilian nuclear infrastructure is ready to support military applications. It implies a level of self-sufficiency that bypasses reliance on foreign technology. Now consider the geopolitical context. The Indo-Pacific region is becoming increasingly contested. In a conflict, logistics are the Achilles heel of any navy. If your ships need to refuel every few weeks, you are vulnerable. If your ships can operate for years without stopping, you become a persistent presence. This changes the strategic balance. It forces adversaries to plan for a fleet that does not tire. It reduces the vulnerability of supply lines that can be targeted by submarines or missiles. But the most profound implication is economic. A nuclear carrier is a white elephant for a nation focused on short-term GDP growth. It is a project that consumes resources without immediate return. By hinting at this capability, Beijing is telling the world that it is shifting its priorities. It is moving from a phase of rapid accumulation to a phase of sustained projection. It is saying that the cost of the ship is secondary to the value of the position it secures. This is a shift from regional defense to global power projection. It mirrors the capabilities of the United States and France, but it comes from a different economic model. The United States built its nuclear fleet during the Cold War when the threat was existential. China is building its fleet during a period of economic transition. The decision to invest in this technology suggests that the leadership believes the future economy will support it. It suggests confidence in their ability to manufacture the components domestically. It suggests that the strategic window for dominance is closing, and they are willing to spend heavily to secure their place before it does. There is also the element of ambiguity. The hint itself is valuable. It keeps potential adversaries guessing. It forces them to allocate resources to counter a threat that may or may not exist in full form. This is a form of strategic signaling that costs very little in terms of actual hardware, but a great deal in terms of psychological impact. It is a way of stretching the budget of the opposition without fully committing the budget of the builder. If the carrier is built, the signal is confirmed. If it is not, the signal remains a threat. Either way, the economic implication is clear. This is not a weapon of war in the traditional sense. It is a marker of industrial maturity. It is a declaration that the nation has crossed a threshold where it can afford to ignore short-term cost-benefit calculations. It is a statement that long-term strategic patience is now the primary economic driver. The ocean does not care about the political debates. It only cares about the physics. And the physics of a nuclear carrier say that range and endurance are the ultimate currencies of naval power. By choosing this path, the leadership is betting that the future belongs to those who can stay on the water the longest. This is the true meaning of the hint. It is not about the ship. It is about the will to build it. And that will is the most expensive commodity of all. It signals a future where the economy is built to sustain the empire, not just the empire built to sustain the economy. That is the shift. That is the contest. That is the ground. When we talk about military hardware, we often focus on the destructive capability. We talk about the number of aircraft on the deck or the speed of the vessel. But the deeper story is always about the money. It is about where the capital is flowing. A nuclear carrier is a massive drain on resources. It requires a specialized workforce, specialized supply chains, and specialized maintenance facilities that cannot be easily replicated. This means that the decision to build one is a decision to restructure the entire economy to support it. It means prioritizing long-term security over short-term consumption. It means accepting that the return on investment will not be seen in the next quarter. It will be seen in the next decade. This is a fundamental change in how the leadership views the relationship between the state and the market. In the past, the market drove the state. Now, the state is driving the market to secure its strategic interests. This is the real significance of the nuclear hint. It is a signal that the era of rapid economic liberalization is giving way to an era of state-directed industrial mobilization. The carrier is just the visible tip of the iceberg. The submerged part is the entire industrial base that must support it. Without that base, the ship is just a floating target. With that base, it is a statement of national will. This brings us back to the concept of strategic patience. In the short term, building a nuclear carrier makes no economic sense. The costs are astronomical, the risks are high. But in the long term, the value of having a fleet that can operate anywhere in the world without logistical support is incalculable. It allows for a freedom of movement that conventional ships simply cannot match. It changes the calculus of every potential conflict. It means that the adversary cannot rely on time or distance to weaken the opponent. It means that the opponent can strike whenever and wherever they choose. This is why the hint matters so much. It is not just about the ship, it is about the future of the region. It is about who controls the water and who controls the trade routes that depend on it. The nuclear carrier is the physical manifestation of a long-term strategy that is now becoming visible. It is a declaration that the leadership is ready to pay the price for the future, and that is a price that many nations are not willing to pay. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I am a one-person team working hard to make each video better than the last. Subscribe if you found value. It is the best way to show support. Drop a comment with your biggest takeaway. See you in the next video.